Hey everyone, welcome to Dr. Sleep. We love creating unique content for you, but we need your support now more than ever. Our channel is facing some challenges, and we really need your interaction. If you enjoy what we offer, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share our videos with your friends. Every comment, like, and share makes a huge difference. Let's grow together and keep bringing you the content you care about. Thank you for your continued support. Mark Evans had been a park ranger for 5 years, and in that time, he'd learned that the woods had their own kind of silence, the kind that made you feel like you were being watched. That was why, when the call came through on the old radio, just as he was about to clock out, something in his gut twisted. "Ranger HQ, this is..." The voice on the line crackled with static. "Emergency, please, it's coming back, I need..." The transmission cut out. Mark frowned, grabbing the receiver. "This is Ranger Evans. Who is this? What's your location?" Nothing but static. He leaned over the dispatch desk and checked the radio logs. No outgoing calls. His supervisor, Ranger Beckett, looked up from his coffee. "You hear that?" Mark asked. "Hear what?" "There was a distress call." Beckett sighed, setting his cup down. "That old radio picks up all kinds of weird interference. Probably some local trucker's CB." "No," Mark insisted. "It was a ranger. I heard him." Beckett glanced at the clock. "Mark, your shift's over. Go home." Mark opened his map and punched in the coordinates from the garbled transmission. His brow furrowed. The location was deep in the forest, off any marked trails. More concerning, there was no ranger shack listed there. "Did we ever have a station out in this sector?" Mark asked. Beckett shook his head. "Never." Mark hesitated. Every part of his training told him to log it and move on. But that voice, the sheer panic in it, stuck with him. If there was even the slightest chance someone needed help, he had to check. "Mark," Beckett warned as he grabbed his jacket, "you go chasing ghosts in the woods. Don't expect me to come looking for you." Mark shot him a smirk. "Wouldn't want you to get lost, old man." As he stepped outside, the cold evening air bit at his face. The sky had turned an eerie shade of purple, the last light of the sun bleeding into the treetops. He climbed into his truck, put the coordinates into his GPS, and frowned. No roads available. Mark exhaled sharply. Figures. It didn't matter. He knew these woods better than anyone. He'd just have to drive as far as he could and hike the rest. As he pulled onto the dirt road leading into the forest, his radio crackled again. A voice. His own voice. "You shouldn't have come." The drive stretched longer than it should have. The deeper Mark went, the more the road narrowed, as if the forest itself were trying to squeeze him out. His headlights cut through the thickening mist, illuminating the gnarled branches above, like skeletal fingers reaching for the sky. Finally, the road ended in a tangled mess of underbrush. He killed the engine, stepped out, and pulled out his flashlight. The air here felt different. Too still. Mark checked his GPS again. The coordinates were still another half-mile ahead. No trails, no paths, just trees. He pressed forward, boots crunching against the damp earth. With each step, the woods seemed to tighten around him. The trees grew closer, their trunks twisted in unnatural ways. The silence was absolute. No wind, no chirping insects. Even his own footsteps sounded muffled. Then he saw it, the shack. It stood in a small clearing, a single-room structure rotting from the inside out. The wooden planks were warped with age, the roof sagging, as if the forest had long since tried to reclaim it. But what caught his attention were the claw marks. Deep, jagged gouges carved across the door and walls, some as high as the roof. Mark swallowed hard, stepping closer. Symbols were scratched into the wood, overlapping like desperate warnings. He ran his fingers over one, the grooves rough and splintered. His flashlight flickered, the air shifted. From inside the shack, a radio crackled to life. Mark's blood went cold. It was the same voice from before. "Ranger HQ, this is..." Static. "Emergency, please, it's coming back, I need..." The message looped, again and again. Mark inhaled sharply, stepping onto the porch. The boards creaked under his weight. He reached for the doorknob, hesitated, then pushed inside. The smell hit him first, a mix of damp wood, rust, and something sour like meat left too long in the sun. The room was small and empty except for an old cot in the corner and a dust-covered desk. The radio sat on top, its speaker crackling. Mark stepped closer. The radio's dials were rusted solid, the power cord cut. It shouldn't be playing. And yet, the message continued. Then it changed. If you found this, you're already too late. The looping stopped. The radio clicked off. And outside something moved. Mark froze. Outside something shifted in the darkness. The trees creaked, but there was no wind, just the sound of something heavy moving through the underbrush. His grip tightened on his flashlight as he swept the beam across the shack's interior. Dust floated through the air, disturbed by his presence. He turned back toward the radio, his heart thudding against his ribs. That voice, it had changed. The first part was the distress call, but that last sentence, that was for him. Mark swallowed hard and forced himself to focus. There had to be a record of whoever was stationed here, a reason for the call. His eyes landed on a wooden desk pushed against the far wall. Yellowed papers were scattered across it. Some crumbled at the edges, others warped from moisture. He picked one up and squinted at the handwriting. Ranger Log, October 3rd, 1971. Something's wrong. It comes at night. I don't know how long I've been here. The maps were wrong. The roads. The rest of the page had been scratched out. Mark flipped through more pages. Each log was written by a different hand, spanning decades. But they all mentioned the same things. If you hear it, do not answer. It mimics. It wears your face. Don't open the door. Some of the final entries were frantic, the handwriting barely legible. It knows my name. Mark's breath hitched. He checked the bottom of the log books, looking for signatures. But the names, he didn't recognize any of them. His stomach tightened. He'd worked these woods for 5 years. He knew every ranger on staff, past and present. But these names, they weren't in any records. A sharp thud rattled the walls. Mark jolted, his breath catching. He turned toward the door, listening. Silence. Then another thud. Closer. Something dragged across the wood outside. A slow, deliberate sound, like nails carving into the planks. Mark took a slow step back, his pulse hammering. His radio hissed with static again. Then from the other side of the door, Mark, a voice, his voice. The doorknob rattled. Mark's blood ran cold. Outside, his own voice whispered, almost pleading. Mark, let me in. He stared at the door, his entire body locked in place. Then from behind him, a floorboard creaked. Mark spun around, his flashlight slicing through the dark. Nothing. But the floorboard had creaked. His breath came shallow, sharp. The shack was too small for anything to be hiding. Just a cot, a desk, and empty walls. No closets, no attic, nowhere to go. And yet he wasn't alone. The doorknob rattled again, harder this time. Mark, let me in. The voice was wrong now. Too flat, too hollow. Like a bad recording of himself, played just a little too slow. Mark clenched his jaw and backed toward the desk, heart hammering. His fingers brushed something, a rusted hunting knife, blade dull with time. He snatched it up, gripping the handle tight. The thing outside shifted, pacing the length of the shack. The wood creaked under its weight. His flashlight flickered, then a sharp knock at the window. Mark's stomach twisted. Slowly, he turned his head toward the small, dust-covered window beside the cot. The glass was filthy, smeared with age. The light from his flashlight barely cut through the grime. But beyond the window, just at the edge of the glass, something moved, a shadow. Tall, wrong. Then his own face stared back at him. Mark's breath hitched. The thing outside, it wasn't a perfect copy. The smile was too wide, the eyes too dark, too deep, like looking into something wearing a human mask, something that hadn't quite figured out how a person was supposed to look. It raised one hand, fingers splayed. The nails were longer than they should be. Blackened at the tips, it pressed them against the glass. Tap, tap. Mark gritted his teeth. No, he wasn't playing this game. He grabbed his radio, hands slick with sweat, and pressed the call button. HQ, this is Ranger Evans. I need immediate assistance at coordinates. Static. Then his own voice answered, "Help me." Mark went cold. The thing outside was on the radio. The message looped, his voice, over and over. A shadow passed across the window. The thing was moving, circling the shack again. Mark tightened his grip on the knife. His only way out was through that door. But if he opened it, a new sound. From the ceiling, a slow, deliberate scratch. It was above him. Mark's breath came fast and shallow. The scratching above him, slow, deliberate, sent ice crawling up his spine. The shack was old, but the roof wasn't that high. Something was up there, something big. He turned his flashlight toward the ceiling. The old wooden planks groaned, bowing inward slightly as if something heavy was shifting its weight. Then a single knock. Not on the door, not on the window, from inside the ceiling. Mark swallowed the bile rising in his throat. Every instinct screamed at him to get out, but where? The door led to the thing outside. The only window was too small to squeeze through. His radio crackled again. "Help me." His own voice. Mark clenched his teeth. No, it wasn't him. It wasn't real. Then, a whisper right above his head. "Which one of us gets to leave?" Mark didn't hesitate. He lunged for the desk and flipped it over, shoving it beneath the door handle. The wood groaned as he braced his back against it, hands gripping the rusted knife so hard his knuckles ached. Silence. For a moment, nothing. Then a loud splintering crack. The ceiling buckled inward. Wood rained down, dust choking the air. Mark threw up an arm to shield his face, coughing as he scrambled away. Something dropped onto the cot. Mark's stomach twisted as he saw it up close. It looked just like him, but the skin was stretched too tight. The fingers were too long, the head tilted at an unnatural angle, as if it had never quite learned how necks were supposed to work. The thing grinned. Mark stumbled back, breath ragged. The thing moved with him. A half-step delay, like a reflection lagging behind. "You took too long, Mark," it said. "You were supposed to leave before midnight." Mark's stomach lurched. The logs, the warnings. He checked his watch. 11:59. The radio screeched. "Which one of us gets to leave?" The thing lunged. Mark dove to the side, slamming into the wall as the cot crumpled beneath the creature's weight. He scrambled to his feet, knife shaking in his grip. His only way out was through the door. The thing laughed. "Go on," it said in his voice. "Run." Mark kicked the desk aside and bolted into the night. The cold night air hit Mark like a slap as he sprinted away from the shack, his boots pounding against the uneven ground. His breath came in ragged gasps, his legs burning. The trees blurred around him, dark shapes twisting in his periphery. Behind him, the shack door slammed open. Mark didn't look back, couldn't. Something was following him. He could hear it moving, not running, just walking, but fast. Too fast for walking, as if the space between them was shrinking without it needing to try. His radio crackled. "Mark," his own voice. "You're going the wrong way." Mark gritted his teeth and kept running. His brain screamed at him to make sense of it, but none of this made sense. The warnings in the logbooks. If you hear it, do not answer. It mimics, it wears your face. Don't open the door. He had already broken the last one. His foot caught on a root, and he crashed forward, hitting the ground hard. His flashlight flew from his grip, bouncing once before rolling to a stop in the dirt, its beam pointing toward the trees. Mark groaned, pushing himself up. His arms were scraped, his knees screaming in protest. He reached for the flashlight. A boot stepped into the beam of light. Mark's breath hitched. The leg attached to the boot was his. The torn ranger pants, the same scuffed-up work boots. Slowly, he lifted his gaze. There he was, his own face, staring down at him, a smile stretched too wide. "Tired?" it asked. Mark scrambled back, kicking away from the thing wearing his skin. The creature tilted its head in that unnatural way, watching him. Mark's shaking fingers found the handle of the rusted knife. "You know the rules," the thing said, stepping closer. Its voice had a slight distortion, like a recording being played on an old tape. Only one of us gets to leave. Mark's fingers tightened around the knife. The thing crouched, its face inches from his. Make it count. Then it lunged. Mark rolled aside, the creature's hand slamming into the dirt where he had been. He pushed to his feet and ran again. But this time he wasn't just running blind. The old ranger logs, there had to be more, a way to survive. His only option was to get back to the shack and find out what the last ranger did to escape. Mark didn't stop running. His lungs burned, legs screamed, but he didn't dare slow down. His thoughts raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. The shack, the warnings, the thing wearing his face, and the voice, his own voice, crackling through the radio like an echo from somewhere he wasn't supposed to hear. Ahead, through the thick trees, the shack reappeared. His stomach twisted. He had just run away from it. It should be miles behind him. But there it was, waiting. The thing was toying with him. Mark skidded to a stop, panting. Behind him the forest was silent. No footsteps, no movement. He wasn't stupid. That thing was still out there, watching. Mark gritted his teeth and forced himself forward. The rules, he had to find them, had to know what the last ranger did to escape. He stepped onto the porch and pushed the door open. The shack was different. Before it had been empty. Now the desk was upright again. The papers were neatly stacked, the radio silent. The only thing out of place was the smell. A new scent, coppery, blood. Mark's pulse pounded in his ears as he moved toward the desk. The logs were open to the last page. His eyes scanned the page, heart hammering. I didn't make it out. The words froze him in place. Then below that, in a different hand, written in bold, jagged letters. Only one of us gets to leave. Mark staggered back, stomach twisting. No, that wasn't possible. A thump sounded behind him. He turned. The thing was inside. It stood in the doorway, hunched like it had to squeeze its two long limbs through. Its grin was too wide, too human trying to be human. Mark raised the knife. The thing laughed, a sound like his own laugh, but wrong. That won't help, it said. Mark's grip tightened. The thing stepped closer. Mark backed up until his legs hit the desk. The papers fluttered. Then he saw it. A final, hastily scribbled note. If it looks like you don't fight, you'll lose. But if you see it first... The rest was smeared in blood. Mark's breath came in sharp bursts. He had seen it first, back in the woods, which meant his stomach turned. That was the rule. If you see it first, you're the real one. Mark's fingers dug into the knife handle. It was him or the thing. Only one of them was getting out of here. He took a deep breath and attacked. Mark lunged. The knife flashed in the dim light, but the thing was faster. It twisted, its body moving like something that had never been human in the first place. Too smooth, too fluid. It ducked under the blade, and before Mark could react, a hand shot out and clamped around his wrist. A cold hand, his own hand. Mark roared, twisting, slamming his elbow into the thing's chest. It felt too solid, too real, like hitting himself. His grip tightened on the knife, but the thing just smiled, a perfect copy of his own smile. You still don't get it, do you? It said. Mark drove the knife forward. The blade sank deep, and the thing laughed. Not in pain, not in anger, like he had just told it a joke. Mark ripped the knife free. The thing didn't bleed. The wound gaped open, skin peeled like fabric, but there was nothing inside, just darkness. Mark stumbled back, stomach twisting. The thing cocked its head, watching him. Then it reached up, grabbing its own face, Mark's face, and peeled it back. Beneath it, nothing. No eyes, no mouth, just a black, hollow void. Then it moved. Mark barely had time to react before the thing lunged. He hit the ground hard, the knife flying from his grip. The thing's hands clamped down on his shoulders, pressing him into the floor. It wasn't strong. It was exactly as strong as he was. That was the trick. It wasn't better. It was just him, which meant it could be beaten. Mark gritted his teeth, forcing his weight against it, rolling. The thing slammed onto its back, its grip breaking just enough. Mark grabbed the knife, and he saw it first. That was the rule. His knife drove downward. The thing screamed, not in sound, but in his head. A deafening psychic howl that made his vision blur, but he didn't stop. Mark stabbed again. Again, the thing's body shuddered, the hollow void where its face had been rippling like liquid. Then it collapsed. Mark gasped for air, rolling onto his back. His entire body trembled. It was gone. He had won. The night stretched on in silence. Then a voice. His radio crackled. Mark swallowed hard, forcing himself to listen. The words were faint, almost drowned in static, but he still recognized his own voice. "It's not me. If you see me, don't believe it." Mark lay on the floor, his chest heaving, fingers numb around the knife handle. The shack felt smaller now, the walls pressing in like something alive. The thing was gone, or at least it looked gone. His radio hissed again. "It's not me. If you see me, don't believe it." His own voice, but not from his lips. His stomach twisted. That wasn't a message meant for him. It was a warning. Mark forced himself up, legs shaking beneath him. The air inside the shack felt different now, lighter, like the weight of something unseen had been lifted. He stumbled toward the desk, eyes scanning the old ranger logs. The pages had changed. The last entry was his own handwriting. "I didn't make it out." Mark's blood went cold. That wasn't possible. He hadn't written that, had he? His fingers trembled as he flipped back through the logs, pages full of frantic, half-written entries from men who had come before him, men who were never found, and all of them ended the same way. "Only one of us gets to leave." A sudden knock at the door. Mark's breath caught. He turned, every muscle in his body locking in place. Through the small, dirty window, he saw someone standing on the porch. A ranger. The uniform was familiar. Too familiar. His own. Mark felt the air leave his lungs. His pulse pounded so hard he thought it might burst through his ribs. The ranger on the porch was him, or it looked like him. The figure raised a hand, palm pressed against the glass. Its mouth moved. Mark didn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. He knew what it was saying. "Which one of us gets to leave?" A sharp pain shot through Mark's skull, splitting behind his eyes. His vision blurred for a moment, his knees nearly buckling. He pressed a hand to his temple, gasping. Memories flooded his mind, driving here, finding the shack, the creature mimicking him, but now something was wrong. His boots were dry, his uniform wasn't torn, his hands were clean. He hadn't been in a fight, had he? The other Mark stared back at him from the window, waiting. A deep, sickening realization slithered into his brain. What if he wasn't the real one? What if he had lost? Mark swallowed hard, his hand trembling as he reached for the door. One of them had to leave, but which one? His fingers brushed the handle. Outside, the other Mark smiled. Mark's hand hovered over the door handle, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Outside, his own face watched him. The smile was patient, expectant. "One of us gets to leave." His fingers twitched, but he didn't turn the knob. "Not yet. Think, damn it, the rules, the warnings. If you see it first, you're the real one." But he had seen it first, hadn't he? His mind swam with doubt. He tried to retrace the night, but the details felt loose, like puzzle pieces forced into the wrong spaces. He remembered killing the thing, felt the knife sinking in. But if he'd won, why was it still standing outside? The radio crackled. A new voice this time. "HQ, this is Ranger Evans. I'm on scene." Mark's stomach lurched. It wasn't coming from the radio inside the shack. It was coming from his truck. A second voice answered. "Beckett." "Copy, Evans. You find anything?" Mark's pulse slammed against his ribs. The other Mark, the one outside, pressed his palm to the window. "That's me," Mark whispered. "I already made the call." But he hadn't. He couldn't have. His hands shook as he looked around the shack. The bloody pages, the knife still slick with something that wasn't quite blood. Had he really escaped, or was he already part of it? The radio crackled again. "HQ, no sign of anyone out here, just an old shack, probably a false report." A long silence, then Beckett's voice. "Understood, come on back." Mark's vision blurred, his head throbbed. The other Mark reached for the doorknob from the outside, and this time Mark didn't stop him. The door swung open. Cold night air rushed in. Mark stepped forward. His boots met the damp earth, solid and real. He turned toward the woods, toward the distant glow of his truck's headlights. The voice on the radio called him back. The shack stood silent behind him. Then the door slammed shut. Mark froze. He turned, his heart hammering. The shack was gone. Nothing remained but a clearing of dead grass and clawed dirt. No logs, no radio, no second Mark. The night stretched quiet and deep. A cold chill worked its way into Mark's bones, but he forced his legs forward. He reached his truck, slid into the driver's seat, and gripped the wheel. His hands felt steady, real. The voice on the radio spoke again. "HQ, this is Ranger Evans. Heading back now." Mark's lips curled into a small, too-wide smile. He started the engine and drove away. I always had a fascination with the ocean. Growing up near the coast, I spent countless hours exploring the rocky shores and imagining the secrets hidden beneath the waves. My love for the sea followed me into adulthood, and I eventually became a certified diver. The sense of freedom and discovery I felt underwater was unmatched by anything on land. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found one quiet evening on the dark web. Like many late-night internet explorations, this one started with boredom and curiosity. I'd stumbled upon a forum dedicated to sharing mysterious and undiscovered locations worldwide. Most posts were hoaxes or easily debunked myths, but one post caught my eye. It contained coordinates in the middle of the ocean, accompanied by a single sentence: "Discover the sunken secrets of the past." Something about the post intrigued me. It didn't have the usual sensationalist claims or blurry photos that usually accompanied these posts, just a set of coordinates and a promise of discovery. As I copied the coordinates into my notes, I felt a mix of excitement and unease. The next day, I contacted my friend Alex, an experienced diver and adventurer who shared my love for the ocean. We had been on several diving trips together, exploring shipwrecks and underwater caves. But this was different. I needed his expertise and level-headedness to help me navigate whatever lay at those coordinates. When I showed him the location, he raised an eyebrow. "This is in the middle of nowhere," he said, scrolling through the map on his tablet. "What makes you think it's worth checking out?" I hesitated, realizing how ridiculous it sounded. "I don't know," I admitted. "But something about it feels real. Like it's more than just another internet myth." Alex considered this for a moment, then nodded. "All right, I'm in. But if this turns out to be a wild goose chase, you owe me a beer." We spent the next few days gathering supplies and renting a boat to take us to the coordinates. I felt a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation as we finally set out on a clear morning. The water was calm, the sun glinting off the surface as we sped towards our destination. After several hours, we arrived at the coordinates. The ocean stretched endlessly in all directions, nothing but blue sky and water as far as the eye could see. We anchored the boat and began preparing our gear. As we donned our wetsuits and checked our diving equipment, the reality of what we were about to do hit me. We were diving into the unknown, with nothing but a hunch and a set of coordinates. With a final check of our gear, we slipped into the water. The ocean was clear and warm, and as we descended, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. We had agreed to stay close and keep communication open, using hand signals to communicate. As we descended deeper, the ocean floor slowly came into view. To my surprise, a massive shipwreck lay beneath us, its structure encrusted with coral and marine life. It was a sight to behold, a ghostly reminder of the past lying silently on the ocean bed. We began exploring the wreck, swimming carefully around the crumbling structure. Schools of colorful fish darted in and out of the portholes, and I could see a variety of marine life that had made the ship their home. It was beautiful and haunting all at once. Suddenly, Alex motioned for me to follow him. He had found an opening in the ship's hull, large enough for us to swim through. We entered cautiously, our flashlights cutting through the dim interior. Inside, the ship was eerily preserved. Tables and chairs were scattered as if abandoned in a hurry, and I could see remnants of cargo strewn about. We swam deeper into the wreck, the shadows lengthening as we explored. It was then that I noticed something unusual. A series of scratches on the wall, almost like markings. They didn't appear to be natural or caused by marine life. I pointed them out to Alex, who seemed equally puzzled. As we examined the markings, I felt an inexplicable chill run down my spine. It was as if the ship itself was trying to tell us something, but what? Our air supply was running low, so we reluctantly made our way back to the surface, the questions swirling in our minds like the ocean currents around us. We climbed back onto the boat, our bodies heavy with exhaustion and the weight of what we had discovered. "Did you see those markings?" I asked Alex as we removed our gear. He nodded, looking as unsettled as I felt. "Yeah, and I don't think they were random. There's something about this ship, something we need to find out." We sat in silence for a while, the gentle rocking of the boat lulling us into a thoughtful trance. I knew we had to return to the wreck to uncover its secrets and piece together its tragic history, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were venturing into dangerous waters, both literally and figuratively. As we headed back to shore, I couldn't help but wonder what stories lay buried with the ship and what dark web mysteries we had yet to uncover. Whatever lay ahead, I was determined to bring the truth to light no matter the cost. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a journey that would test our courage and change our lives forever. Our first dive had left us with more questions than answers, and Alex and I couldn't stop thinking about the ship and its mysterious markings. We spent the next few days researching, trying to uncover any history related to the coordinates or the shipwreck. Our search led us down countless rabbit holes, each filled with rumors and half-truths, but no concrete information. One evening, while sifting through online archives, I stumbled upon an old newspaper article from the early 1900s. It detailed a tragic maritime accident involving a passenger ship called the Seraphine. The ship was reported missing after departing from its last known location, carrying both passengers and cargo. Despite extensive searches at the time, no trace was ever found. The article mentioned a peculiar detail that caught my attention. The ship had been transporting an ancient artifact, rumored to be cursed. According to local legends, the artifact was sought by many for its supposed supernatural properties, but its true nature remained shrouded in mystery. This piqued my curiosity further. Could the Seraphine be the ship we had discovered? I shared the information with Alex, who was just as intrigued as I was. "If this is the same ship, we need to find that artifact," he said. "It might explain the markings we saw and the ship's disappearance." We agreed to return to the wreck and explore it more thoroughly, focusing on areas that could hold clues about the artifact. Armed with this new information, we prepared for another dive. On the morning of our second dive, the sky was overcast, casting a gray pall over the ocean. As we approached the wreck, a sense of anticipation and unease settled over us. We checked our equipment carefully before descending once more into the depths. This time we followed the ship's corridors more meticulously, navigating through tight spaces and avoiding fragile structures. The eerie silence of the ship was broken only by the gentle hum of our breathing and the occasional creak of the ship's hull. We reached a part of the ship that appeared to have been a storage area. Boxes and crates lay scattered, some half buried in sand. As we searched through the debris, we found old waterlogged documents, their ink faded but still legible in places. They seemed to confirm the ship's identity as the Seraphine, listing passengers and cargo manifest, including a line item marked as Ancient Artifact. As we continued our exploration, Alex discovered a hidden compartment behind a false wall. Inside, we found a small, ornate box, covered in barnacles and algae. It looked ancient and out of place amid the wreckage. The box was locked, but I felt certain it held the artifact we were searching for. We carefully retrieved the box, mindful of its delicate state, and continued our search. In another part of the ship, we found more of those strange markings, similar to what we had seen before. They seemed to form a pattern, but deciphering it was difficult underwater. With our air supplies dwindling, we decided to return to the surface with our discovery. Once back on the boat, we examined the box more closely. It was made of a dark wood with intricate carvings that resembled the markings we had seen in the ship. The lock was rusted, but with some careful work, Alex managed to open it. Inside, we found a small, intricately carved stone figurine. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, depicting a creature that was part human, part sea monster, with eyes that seemed to follow us. Holding it gave me an uneasy feeling, as if the weight of history and legend was pressing down on me. We sat in silence, staring at the artifact. The legend of the cursed artifact seemed less like a story and more like a warning. What had we uncovered, and what consequences would follow? Our minds raced with possibilities, but we knew we had to proceed carefully. We decided to research more about the artifact and its history before making any decisions. As we headed back to shore, the weight of our discovery settled over us like a shroud, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we had just scratched the surface of a much deeper mystery. The ocean, it seemed, held secrets that were as vast and mysterious as its depths, and we were only beginning to uncover them. Little did we know our journey was far from over, and the path ahead would test our resolve in ways we couldn't yet imagine. Back on shore, Alex and I took the artifact to my small apartment where we could examine it more closely. As we laid it on the table, the strange figurine seemed to exude an aura that filled the room with an unsettling energy. We were both cautious, yet intrigued, aware that we were handling something potentially valuable and historically significant. I spent the next few days diving into research, trying to uncover anything I could about the artifact. The internet offered little information, and what I found only deepened the mystery. There were countless myths about cursed objects and lost treasures, but nothing concrete about this particular figurine. We decided to consult a local historian, Dr. Miriam Foster, who had a reputation for her knowledge of maritime history and ancient artifacts. We met her at a small cafe by the harbor, where we carefully showed her the artifact and recounted our discovery. Dr. Foster examined the figurine with a keen eye, tracing her fingers over the intricate carvings. "This is extraordinary," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "These carvings resemble symbols used by an ancient maritime civilization known as the Thalassans. They were believed to possess advanced knowledge of navigation in the sea, and their artifacts are incredibly rare." She explained that the Thalassans were known for their seafaring prowess and their affinity for the mysteries of the ocean. Legends spoke of their ability to harness the power of the sea, using it to protect their ships and ensure safe passage. However, their civilization mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only fragments of their history. Dr. Foster's explanation shed some light on the artifact's origin, but it also raised more questions. Why was the figurine on the Seraphine, and what role did it play in the ship's disappearance? Intrigued by the mystery, Dr. Foster offered to help us further investigate the artifact and its history. We agreed, eager to learn more about what we had uncovered and how it might be connected to the shipwreck. Over the next few weeks, we worked closely with Dr. Foster, visiting archives and examining historical records. We discovered that the Seraphine had been commissioned to transport the artifact to a wealthy collector in Europe, who was obsessed with uncovering the secrets of the Thalassans. The collector had gone to great lengths to acquire the figurine, believing it held the key to unlocking the lost civilization's secrets. As we delved deeper, we began to piece together a timeline of events leading up to the ship's disappearance. According to records, the ship's captain had expressed concerns about the artifact, noting strange occurrences and a sense of unease among the crew. Passengers had reported seeing strange visions and hearing whispers in the night. Despite the warnings, the ship continued its journey until it vanished without a trace. Our research suggested that the artifact's presence might have triggered these events, possibly awakening something within the depths of the ocean. The more we learned, the more I felt a growing connection to the ship and its tragic history. It was as if the artifact had chosen us to uncover its story and bring the truth to light. But the path to discovery was fraught with challenges, and I knew we had to proceed with caution. One afternoon, as we sat in Dr. Foster's study, surrounded by books and documents, Alex spoke up. "Do you think the artifact could be responsible for the shipwreck?" he asked, voicing the question that had been on my mind since our first dive. Dr. Foster paused, considering the possibility. "It's certainly possible," she said. "Artifacts like this have been known to carry a certain energy. Whether it's a curse or simply a manifestation of the Thalassan's power, I can't say for sure, but it's clear that the artifact is more than just a relic." Her words hung in the air, a reminder of the weight of our discovery. We had uncovered something truly remarkable, but with it came the responsibility to understand and protect it. As we continued our research, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Strange occurrences began to happen around me, doors creaking open on their own, lights flickering without explanation, and a persistent feeling of being observed. I brushed it off as paranoia, but a small part of me wondered if the artifact was influencing our surroundings. Despite the growing sense of unease, I was determined to see this journey through to the end. We were close to uncovering the truth, and I couldn't turn back now. The sunken ship and its mysterious cargo had become a part of my life, and I was committed to unraveling the secrets of the past. Little did I know, the challenges ahead would test our resolve and push us to the brink of discovery and danger. The ocean had its secrets, and it was up to us to bring them to light, no matter the cost. Our research into the Thalassan artifact had drawn us deeper into the mystery, but it also left us with a growing sense of urgency. The more we uncovered about the Seraphine and its ill-fated voyage, the clearer it became that the answers lay with the ship itself. We needed to return to the wreck and explore further, guided by what we had learned from Dr. Foster. Alex and I prepared for another dive, this time more methodically. We planned to map out key areas of the ship, focusing on the storage compartments and any hidden chambers that might hold clues about the artifact and its connection to the Thalassans. Dr. Foster provided us with historical maps of the ship, which we used to chart our course. The morning of our dive, the ocean was calm, the water reflecting the gray clouds above. As we approached the site, a palpable tension filled the air. Despite our excitement, there was an underlying fear of the unknown, a feeling that something awaited us below the surface. We descended into the depths, the water growing darker as we approached the wreck. The ship loomed before us like a ghostly giant, its once proud structure now a shadow of its former self. Armed with our plan and determination, we entered the wreck, following the path we had mapped out. Inside, the ship felt different. The air was heavy with anticipation, and the shadows seemed to dance around us. We moved through the corridors, our flashlights illuminating the path as we searched for answers. We reached a section of the ship we hadn't explored before, a series of rooms hidden behind collapsed debris. As we cleared the passage, we discovered a small chamber that appeared to be the captain's quarters. Inside, we found the captain's log, a water-damaged but still legible account of the journey. The log revealed the captain's growing concern over the artifact and its impact on the crew. He described strange occurrences, like sudden temperature drops and inexplicable feelings of dread. The crew had grown increasingly restless, some claiming to see figures in the shadows or hear voices calling their names. The captain feared that the artifact was at the center of these disturbances, a belief that seemed more plausible with each passing day. As I read the log, I felt a chill run down my spine. The captain's words mirrored the experiences we had been having since discovering the artifact. The sense of being watched, the strange occurrences, it all pointed back to the figurine. we continued our exploration, guided by the log's entries. In one of the final entries, the captain mentioned a hidden chamber designed to protect valuable cargo. With this information, we set out to find it, hoping it would hold the answers we sought. After some time, we discovered a hidden panel in the ship's hull, cleverly concealed behind a false wall. Inside was a small reinforced room, and at its center was a pedestal. It was empty, but the design matched the box we had found containing the artifact. As we examined the room, we found more of the strange markings, forming a pattern that spiraled around the walls. It was clear this chamber had been built to house the artifact, to protect it, or perhaps to protect the world from it. Our dive was nearing its end, but before leaving I noticed something glinting in the corner of the chamber. It was a small rusted key, likely dropped by the captain or crew in their final moments. I pocketed it, feeling it might hold significance. Back on the boat, we discussed our findings with Dr. Foster. She was fascinated by the captain's log and the hidden chamber, suggesting that the Thalassans might have entrusted the artifact to certain individuals, who then used it to guide or protect their journeys. "The artifact is powerful," Dr. Foster said, her eyes alight with curiosity. "It's possible the Thalassans understood its influence and took great care to control it. But in the wrong hands, who knows what could happen?" We agreed that our next step was to understand the artifact's power and determine how to handle it safely. We needed to find out if the key we found had any connection to the artifact, and if it could unlock any secrets. As we prepared to leave, I felt a sense of both accomplishment and foreboding. We had uncovered so much, yet the deeper we dug, the more questions arose. The ocean held its secrets close, and the artifact was at the heart of it all. The path forward was uncertain, but I knew we were close to unveiling the truth. Whatever lay ahead, I was determined to see it through, to bring light to the mysteries hidden beneath the waves, and ensure the artifact's power was understood and contained. Little did we know, our journey was nearing a critical juncture, one that would test our courage and resolve in ways we couldn't imagine. The sunken ship had brought us together, and now it was up to us to uncover its final secrets. With the discoveries from our latest dive fresh in our minds, Alex, Dr. Foster, and I gathered in my apartment to discuss our next steps. The artifact, the captain's log, and the hidden chamber had given us pieces of a puzzle that was nearly complete. All that remained was to understand the power of the artifact and determine how to safely manage it. The rusted key we found in the chamber seemed like the final piece of this mystery. We needed to discover what it unlocked. I decided to conduct a more detailed inspection of the artifact and the key, hoping to find any hidden mechanisms or inscriptions that might provide further clues. As I carefully examined the figurine, I noticed tiny engravings at its base that I had previously overlooked. They were similar to the symbols we had seen in the ship's chamber, but smaller and more intricate. Dr. Foster recognized them as Thalassan script and spent the next few days deciphering their meaning. While she worked, Alex and I focused on the key, testing it against various locks and examining it for any hidden features. Despite its age, the key was well preserved, with a delicate pattern etched along its shaft. We speculated that it might have been designed to work in conjunction with the artifact, possibly to control or activate its power. Dr. Foster's breakthrough came late one evening. She called us over, excitement in her voice, and explained that the engravings were a form of protective incantation, meant to safeguard the bearer and ensure the artifact's power remained dormant unless needed. This confirms that the Thalassans were aware of the artifact's influence and took steps to control it, she said. The key might have been part of this mechanism, used to unlock or activate its abilities. With this revelation, we decided to conduct a controlled experiment. We planned to test the key and artifact in a safe environment, far from populated areas, to understand its true potential and determine the best way to protect it. We returned to the shipwreck site, setting up a small research station on our boat. We chose a clear day with calm seas, ensuring optimal conditions for our experiment. As the sun set, casting an orange glow over the water, we gathered on deck with the artifact and key. Using the translations Dr. Foster had provided, we carefully positioned the artifact and inserted the key into a small hidden slot at its base. To our astonishment, the figurine began to emit a soft, luminescent glow, casting patterns of light across the deck. It was beautiful and awe-inspiring, a testament to the Thalassan's mastery over the sea and its mysteries. As the light pulsed gently, we felt a calming presence enveloping us, a stark contrast to the unease we had felt before. It was as if the artifact recognized our intentions and was responding accordingly. I could almost hear the whispers of the past, guiding us and affirming that we were on the right path. We observed the artifact for a while, taking notes and recording the experience. The key had indeed unlocked its power, revealing a gentle and protective force, rather than the ominous energy we had feared. It seemed the Thalassans had used the artifact as a tool to guide their voyages and ensure safe passage, a relic of their connection to the sea. Satisfied with our findings, we carefully locked the artifact and prepared to return it to its protective case. We knew we had uncovered something truly remarkable, a link to a lost civilization and a testament to the enduring mysteries of the ocean. Back on shore, we discussed our plans for the artifact's future. Dr. Foster suggested donating it to a maritime museum where it could be studied and preserved, ensuring its story would be shared with future generations. Alex and I agreed, knowing it was the best way to honor the Thalassans and the ship that had carried the artifact for so long. As we made our way home, I reflected on the journey we had undertaken, from a mysterious post on the dark web to a sunken ship filled with secrets. We had navigated the depths of the ocean and uncovered a story that spanned centuries. It was a testament to the power of curiosity and the enduring allure of the unknown. In the end, the sunken ship had revealed its secrets, and we had emerged wiser and more connected to the sea and its mysteries. The experience had changed us, deepening our appreciation for the ocean and the stories it holds. We had brought the truth to light, ensuring that the legacy of the Thalassans and the Seraphine would be remembered. The ocean, vast and mysterious, continued to whisper its secrets, waiting for those willing to listen and explore. And as I stood on the shore, gazing out at the horizon, I knew that our journey was just one of many, a testament to the endless wonders that lay beneath the waves. I stumbled upon the coordinates while browsing a sketchy forum on the dark web. It wasn't something I typically did, but I was drawn to the mystery and allure of the unknown. The post was titled Forgotten Echoes, and the user who posted it claimed they had discovered an abandoned military facility deep within a forest that was supposedly untouched for decades. As an aspiring urban explorer, the idea was too tempting to resist. The journey began on a cool autumn morning. The sky was a perfect canvas of soft blues and grays, and the air carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves. Armed with a flashlight, a backpack filled with supplies, and my trusty camera, I set off for the forest. According to the coordinates, the facility was about a 4-hour drive from my small town. The road there was winding and narrow, barely more than a dirt path as it cut through the dense trees. When I finally reached the location, I parked my car off the road and began the hike into the forest. The trees loomed overhead, their branches intertwining to form a natural canopy. Sunlight filtered through in patches, creating a dappled pattern on the forest floor. As I walked, I felt a growing sense of unease, like I was being watched. I shook off the feeling, attributing it to my overactive imagination. After nearly an hour of walking, I arrived at the site. The facility was larger than I expected. A chain-link fence, rusted and sagging in places, surrounded the perimeter. Vines and moss covered the barbed wire at the top, and a faded sign warned against trespassing. I hesitated for a moment, the reality of what I was about to do hitting me. But curiosity got the better of me, and I slipped through a gap in the fence. The main building loomed ahead, a massive structure of concrete and steel, Its windows were shattered and the paint was peeling, revealing the cold gray beneath. I approached cautiously, my footsteps echoing in the silence. As I entered the building, a chill ran down my spine. The air inside was cool and musty, carrying the faint scent of something rotten. The first room I entered appeared to be a reception area. An old desk sat in the center, covered in dust and debris. Papers were scattered across the floor, their edges yellowed with age. I picked up a few, noting military insignias and codes I couldn't decipher. Among the papers, I found a tattered map of the facility. Most of it was illegible, but I could make out a few key areas: laboratories, barracks, and a central command room. The laboratory seemed like a good place to start, so I made my way down a dimly lit hallway. The walls were lined with faded photographs and diagrams, some of which depicted strange symbols and figures that made my skin crawl. As I walked, I heard a faint scratching noise. I froze, straining to listen. The sound was coming from a room up ahead, its door slightly ajar. I pushed the door open cautiously, revealing a small laboratory. The source of the noise was immediately apparent: a rat, gnawing on the remnants of an old experiment. It scurried away as I entered, disappearing into the shadows. I scanned the room, taking in the rusted equipment and broken glass strewn about. One corner of the room held a stack of dusty binders, their spines labeled with dates and cryptic titles. I picked up one of the binders and flipped through it. The pages were filled with handwritten notes and diagrams detailing various experiments. Most were beyond my comprehension, but one word stood out: subject. The pages described tests conducted on individuals referred to only by numbers. My stomach churned as I realized these experiments were not just theoretical, they maybe involved real people. As I continued to read, I discovered a section titled Warnings. The handwriting was frantic, the words underlined and circled multiple times. The warnings spoke of unforeseen consequences, of subjects experiencing bizarre and terrifying side effects. The final entry ended abruptly, as if the writer had been interrupted. I felt a chill run down my spine. Whatever had happened here was far more sinister than I had imagined. I left the laboratory, eager to explore more, but also feeling a growing sense of dread. I decided to head towards the central command room, hoping it might provide more answers. The facility was a maze of corridors and rooms, each more unsettling than the last. As I walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. I reached the command room, its heavy door hanging off its hinges. Inside, banks of old computers and monitors lined the walls, their screens cracked and dark. A large map of the facility dominated one wall, covered in red pins and annotations. I approached the central console, where a thick layer of dust covered the controls. As I brushed away the dust, I uncovered a journal tucked beneath the console. The journal belonged to someone named Dr. Everett, who seemed to have been in charge of the facility. The entries detailed the day-to-day operations, initially mundane but gradually growing more disturbing. Dr. Everett wrote of strange occurrences, of equipment malfunctioning without explanation, and of personnel reporting eerie sightings and sensations. The final entries were the most chilling. Dr. Everett described a growing paranoia among the staff, of whispers in the night and shadows that moved on their own. He mentioned an emergency evacuation but provided no details on what prompted it. The last page ended with a desperate plea: "If you find this, leave and never return. It knows you're here." The drive back home was uneventful, but my mind was anything but calm. My thoughts kept returning to the abandoned facility and the chilling warnings I had discovered. The journal of Dr. Everett sat on the passenger seat, its contents a haunting reminder of what I had uncovered. I knew I had to return, but this time I would be better prepared. Once home, I laid the journal on my desk and began to examine it more closely. I took notes, creating a timeline of events based on Dr. Everett's entries. It seemed that everything had begun to unravel about 2 months before the evacuation. There were mentions of a project codenamed Echo, which seemed to be the source of the facility's problems. The journal didn't specify what the project entailed, only that it was of the utmost importance to national security. I spent the next few days researching anything I could find related to the facility and Project Echo. It was as if the entire operation had been erased from public records, leaving no trace of its existence. My search yielded little, but I found mentions of a similar project in declassified documents from the Cold War era, where experiments were conducted to manipulate sound frequencies for unknown purposes. This led me to wonder if the facility had been involved in something similar. As I delved deeper into the mystery, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. At night, I'd hear faint noises outside my window, the rustling of leaves or the creak of floorboards. It was probably just my imagination, heightened by my recent discoveries, but it kept me on edge. The words, "Beware the echoes," haunted me, a constant reminder of the danger that might await. Despite my apprehension, I was determined to return to the facility. I needed to uncover the truth about Project Echo and the fate of its inhabitants. I packed a larger bag this time, filled with food, extra batteries for my flashlight, and a notebook to document my findings. I also brought along a portable recorder, thinking it might help capture any strange sounds or phenomena. I set out early the next morning, the sky overcast and threatening rain. As I approached the facility, the familiar sense of unease settled over me. The forest seemed even more oppressive, the trees closing in like silent sentinels. I parked my car in the same spot and made my way to the entrance, noting that the gap in the fence was wider than before, as if someone or something had passed through recently. Once inside, I retraced my steps to the command room, hoping to find more clues. The room was just as I had left it, the dusty consoles and cracked screens a testament to its long abandonment. I set my recorder on the console and began to explore further, examining the map more closely. It seemed to highlight several key areas within the facility, one of which was labeled Sound Testing Chamber. This piqued my interest, and I decided it would be my next destination. The path to the chamber took me through a series of winding corridors, each one lined with more of those eerie diagrams and symbols. The air was thick with dust, and every step echoed ominously in the silence. As I approached the chamber, I heard a faint hum, a low vibration that seemed to resonate through the walls. The door to the chamber was ajar, and I pushed it open cautiously. The room was large and circular, with walls lined with soundproofing panels. In the center stood a complex array of equipment, including speakers, microphones, and computers. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, but the equipment appeared intact. As I examined the room, I noticed a series of tapes labeled with dates and cryptic titles. Curiosity got the better of me, and I inserted one of the tapes into a nearby player. The room was filled with a low, rhythmic pulse, a sound that seemed to vibrate through my bones. It was unsettling, yet strangely mesmerizing. I switched the tape for another, this one marked with a red warning label. The sound that emerged was different, more chaotic. It was a cacophony of whispers and static, punctuated by occasional bursts of melody that seemed familiar yet unplaceable. I felt a sudden chill, as if the sound itself was reaching out to me. As the tape played, I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light. My heart raced, and I instinctively reached for the nearest object to defend myself. But when I looked again, the figure was gone, leaving only the echo of its presence. Shaken, I decided it was time to leave. I packed up the tapes and my recorder, determined to analyze them further at home. As I made my way back through the corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Every creak and groan of the building seemed amplified, echoing through the empty halls. When I finally stepped outside, I felt a sense of relief, but it was short-lived. The forest seemed darker than before, the shadows deeper and more menacing. I hurried back to my car, the urge to look over my shoulder growing stronger with each step. Once inside, I locked the doors and started the engine, eager to put distance between myself and the facility. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that figure standing at the edge of the trees. But there was nothing, only the forest fading into the distance. The tapes sat on the passenger seat, a tangible reminder of the mysteries I had yet to unravel. Back home, I set up my equipment to analyze the tapes. The first one was easy enough to decipher, a series of low-frequency sound waves designed to induce a hypnotic state. But the second tape was more complex, a jumble of sounds that seemed to defy explanation. I listened to it over and over, each time picking up new details that sent shivers down my spine. As the hours passed, I became increasingly aware of a presence in my apartment. Shadows seemed to shift and move in the corners of my vision, and I felt an unshakable sense of being watched. The words of Dr. Everett echoed in my mind. "It knows you're here." Despite my fear, I was determined to uncover the truth. The facility's secrets were slowly unraveling, and I knew I was getting closer to understanding what had happened there. But as I sat in the dim light of my apartment, surrounded by echoes of the past, I couldn't help but wonder if I was in over my head. The more I learned, the more I realized that the abandoned facility was not as forgotten as it seemed. Its echoes reached beyond the confines of its walls, whispering secrets that threatened to unravel my understanding of reality itself. And as I prepared to return once more, I knew I had to tread carefully before those echoes consumed me entirely. After spending countless hours listening to the tapes, I felt both drawn in and unsettled. The strange sounds echoed in my mind, making sleep difficult. My curiosity had shifted from merely exploring the abandoned facility to solving the enigma of Project Echo and understanding the chilling messages left behind. I decided to visit the local library to see if any historical records or archived news articles might offer more context. I spent a full day digging through old newspapers and public records, hoping to find any mention of the facility or the experiments that had taken place there. To my surprise, I stumbled upon an article from the late 1970s mentioning a nearby town hall meeting about the construction of a communications research center in the forest. It was brief and lacking in detail, but it confirmed that the facility had once been known to the public. Further research revealed scattered references to mysterious sounds heard by locals during the facility's operational years. Some residents claimed that on certain nights, the air would be filled with a low, haunting hum that resonated throughout the town. Others reported feeling an inexplicable sense of dread whenever they ventured too close to the forest. Armed with this new information, I returned home and decided to re-examine Dr. Everett's journal for any clues I might have missed. There was an entry I had previously overlooked where Dr. Everett mentioned an event known as the resonance. It was described as a breakthrough that had far-reaching effects on both the facility and its inhabitants. However, the details were sparse and the entry ended abruptly, leaving me with more questions than answers. I reached out to a friend who worked as a sound engineer, hoping he could help me make sense of the tapes. We met at his studio, where he had access to more advanced equipment. Together, we analyzed the recordings, isolating various frequencies and patterns. As we worked, a disturbing picture began to emerge. The first tape, with its hypnotic frequencies, seemed designed to alter brainwave patterns, inducing a state of heightened suggestibility. The second tape, chaotic and unsettling, contained layered audio tracks that appeared to have been deliberately arranged to elicit specific emotional responses: fear, confusion, and anxiety. My friend pointed out that some of the sounds were reminiscent of natural phenomena, such as whale songs or distant thunder, but distorted and manipulated in a way that made them unnaturally unsettling. We speculated that these experiments were part of an attempt to understand how sound could be used to influence human perception and behavior. Despite the unsettling nature of our findings, I was more determined than ever to return to the facility. I needed to find out what the resonance was and why it had been so significant. My friend, intrigued by the mystery, offered to accompany me on my next visit. The following weekend, we set out early in the morning, equipped with recording devices, cameras, and a sense of cautious curiosity. The forest greeted us with its usual silence, the only sound being the rustling leaves underfoot. We made our way to the facility, the familiar unease settling over us as we approached. This time, we decided to explore a different part of the facility, the barracks where the staff had lived. The building was smaller and less intimidating than the main complex, but its dilapidated state spoke volumes about its abandonment. As we entered, the air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of decay. The rooms were sparsely furnished, with old beds and personal belongings left behind. It was as if the occupants had fled in a hurry, leaving everything untouched. I rummaged through a drawer, finding a collection of photographs and letters. The images depicted staff members smiling, posing in front of the facility, oblivious to the fate that awaited them. One letter in particular caught my attention. It was from a scientist named Dr. Laura Meyer, addressed to her family. She wrote about her excitement and trepidation regarding Project Echo, describing it as a groundbreaking study that could change the world. Her final words, however, were a cryptic warning. If anything goes wrong, remember that the echoes carry more than sound. The weight of her words lingered with me as we continued to explore. In the common area, we discovered a series of chalkboards filled with calculations and sketches. Among them was a diagram labeled echo amplification and notes referencing resonance thresholds. It seemed that the staff had been working on a method to amplify sound waves to an unprecedented level. Our exploration took us to a basement area, where we found an old generator and various mechanical equipment. It was here that we discovered a hidden compartment containing more tapes and a set of blueprints for a device labeled resonator. The blueprints were complex, filled with annotations and warnings about power surges and potential side effects. We decided to take the tapes and blueprints back with us for further analysis, but as we made our way back to the main exit, we heard a sound that made us freeze in our tracks. It was a low hum, growing louder and more intense, resonating through the walls like a heartbeat. The sound was familiar, reminiscent of the tapes we had listened to, but much more powerful. Panicked, we rushed toward the exit, our footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The hum seemed to follow us, growing in intensity until it was almost deafening. As we finally emerged into the daylight, the sound abruptly stopped, leaving us in eerie silence. We exchanged nervous glances, both realizing that the facility was far from dormant. Back in the safety of our car, we tried to process what had just happened. The hum had been so intense, so all-consuming, that it left us shaken and bewildered. We agreed that we needed to approach this mystery with even greater caution, aware that whatever we were dealing with was far more complex and dangerous than we had imagined. The drive home was quiet, each of us lost in thought. I couldn't shake the feeling that the echoes were more than just sound. They were a manifestation of something deeper, a connection to a past that refused to be forgotten. As I dropped my friend off, we promised to continue our investigation and uncover the truth behind Project Echo and its ominous legacy. Back home, I reviewed the tapes and blueprints, piecing together what I could. The resonator seemed to be a device designed to amplify sound to a level that could influence not just minds, but reality itself. The implications were staggering, and I knew we were on the brink of discovering something that had the potential to change everything we knew about sound and its power. But with each revelation came a growing sense of dread. The facility's secrets were unraveling, but at what cost? The echoes of the past were becoming more insistent, and I feared that we were getting closer to a truth that might be better left undiscovered. Yet, despite the risks, I was compelled to continue, driven by the need to understand the mysteries of the abandoned facility and the strange experiments that had taken place within its walls. In the days following our visit to the facility, I immersed myself in deciphering the blueprints and analyzing the tapes. Each piece of information seemed to weave a complex tapestry of scientific ambition and unintended consequences. The resonator, as it turned out, was not just a theoretical construct but a real device meant to push the boundaries of sound and perception. Its purpose was to create an auditory experience so immersive and powerful that it could alter human consciousness. Despite the fascination I felt, there was an undercurrent of fear that lingered with me. The memory of that intense hum from the facility haunted my thoughts, and I often found myself listening to the recordings late into the night, trying to understand the resonance they created. I knew that I needed to return to the facility one final time, not only to uncover more answers but to see if the resonator was still operational. This time I contacted a former professor of mine, Dr. James Carter, who specialized in acoustic physics and had an interest in the paranormal. I shared my findings with him, omitting the more supernatural elements for fear of skepticism. He was intrigued by the scientific potential of the resonator and agreed to accompany me on my next visit, hoping to gather data that might explain the phenomena I had experienced. We set out early on a clear, crisp morning, the sun casting long shadows across the forest as we approached the facility. Dr. Carter brought along some specialized equipment, an array of sound meters, recording devices, and a laptop to analyze the data on site. As we entered the facility, a familiar sense of anticipation and trepidation washed over me. Our goal was to locate the resonator and determine its status. We navigated through the corridors, guided by the blueprints I had studied. The path led us to a section of the facility that we had not explored before, a vast underground chamber hidden beneath the main complex. The chamber was enormous, filled with rows of equipment and cables that snaked across the floor. At its center stood the resonator, an imposing structure of steel and wires, its presence both awe-inspiring and ominous. It looked like a monstrous tuning fork, with intricate panels and dials that hinted at its complexity. Dr. Carter set up his equipment, calibrating the sound meters to capture any frequencies that might be emitted. As he worked, I examined the control panel, noting the switches and levers that controlled the device. It was clear that activating the resonator would be risky, but we both agreed that understanding its capabilities was crucial. With a deep breath, I flipped the switch to power on the resonator. The chamber was instantly filled with a low hum, a vibration that seemed to resonate through the very air around us. Dr. Carter's equipment registered the frequencies, capturing data that would later reveal the resonator's true power. As the hum intensified, I noticed a strange sensation, a tingling at the edges of my perception, as if the sound was reaching into my mind. Images began to flicker before my eyes, fleeting glimpses of the facility in its prime, bustling with activity and purpose. I saw scientists in lab coats, engaged in experiments, their faces a mix of excitement and concern. Dr. Carter, too, seemed entranced by the resonator's effects. He murmured about the sound wave's potential to influence neural patterns, hypothesizing that the device might have been designed to unlock latent abilities or alter perceptions on a fundamental level. Just as suddenly as it had begun, the hum ceased, leaving us in stunned silence. The resonator powered down, and the echoes of its sound lingered in the chamber. We stood there, processing the experience, aware that we had tapped into something extraordinary and dangerous. As we prepared to leave, I noticed a small control panel on the far side of the room. It seemed to contain logs and data entries from the facility's operational days. One entry caught my eye, a series of messages exchanged between Dr. Everett and another scientist, Dr. Laura Meyer, the author of the letter I had found earlier. The messages were a mix of excitement and caution, detailing their progress with the resonator and its ability to create auditory illusions. They spoke of a breakthrough, an event that had triggered the facility's closure. Dr. Meyer had expressed concerns about the potential for harm, urging Dr. Everett to halt the experiments until more was understood. The final message was a plea from Dr. Meyer, warning of a resonant feedback loop that could amplify the sound waves to an uncontrollable level. Her last words were chilling. If you activate it again, there's no telling what might happen. Dr. Carter and I exchanged worried glances, realizing that we had narrowly avoided a potentially catastrophic outcome. We gathered our equipment and hurried back to the surface, the weight of our discovery heavy on our minds. As we exited the facility, the sunlight felt reassuringly warm, a stark contrast to the cold, mechanical environment we had just left. Dr. Carter promised to analyze the data and report his findings, while I contemplated the implications of what we had experienced. The journey home was a mix of relief and contemplation. I couldn't help but wonder about the true purpose of the resonator and whether its creators had fully understood its capabilities. The echoes of the past were no longer confined to the facility. They resonated within me, a reminder of the power of sound and the mysteries that still lay hidden in the depths of the forest. That night, as I reviewed the data we had collected, I felt a renewed sense of determination. The resonator's potential was both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a testament to the limits of human understanding. But even as I delved deeper into my research, I knew that the echoes of the past were not easily silenced, and the true nature of Project Echo remained an enigma that demanded further exploration. With each passing day, I felt the pull of the facility, a call to uncover the secrets that lay within its walls. The echoes had become a part of me, whispering truths and mysteries that promised to reshape my understanding of sound, perception, and the thin line between reality and illusion. The days following our encounter with the resonator were a blur of analysis and reflection. Dr. Carter, true to his word, dedicated his time to understanding the data we had gathered. He discovered that the resonator emitted frequencies that could indeed affect neural patterns and perceptions, confirming our experience in the facility. Despite our scientific breakthroughs, the mystery of the abandoned facility still lingered. I felt a growing compulsion to return, not just to understand the resonator's potential, but to uncover the truth about the people who had worked there and what ultimately led to their sudden evacuation. Dr. Carter and I decided on one final expedition, determined to explore the remaining unexplored areas and see if we could find any more clues. This time, we prepared meticulously, equipping ourselves with enhanced recording devices, protective gear, and a plan to safely deactivate the resonator should it become unstable. We arrived at the facility under a clear sky, the forest eerily silent as we made our way inside. Our first destination was the command center, where we hoped to find more information about Project Echo and the staff's final days. As we sifted through the dusty consoles and paper-strewn desks, we uncovered a hidden compartment beneath one of the control panels. Inside was a small box containing a collection of personal diaries and notes from various staff members. The writings painted a vivid picture of life at the facility, capturing both the excitement and anxiety that surrounded their work. One diary in particular belonged to Dr. Laura Meyer. Her entries revealed a passionate scientist who believed in the potential of the resonator, but who also had deep concerns about its ethical implications. She wrote about her growing unease, describing strange occurrences within the facility, lights flickering, equipment malfunctioning, and a pervasive sense of unease among the staff. The final entry was particularly poignant. Dr. Meyer described a meeting with Dr. Everett, where she expressed her fears about the resonator's power and the possibility of it being used for harmful purposes. She pleaded with him to halt the experiments until they could better understand the risks, but it seemed her warnings went unheeded. Armed with this new insight, we proceeded to the last unexplored area of the facility, a heavily fortified chamber labeled Containment. The door was secured with multiple locks, but we managed to bypass them with a little ingenuity and some luck. Inside, we found a room filled with monitoring equipment and reinforced walls, designed to withstand significant forces. At its center stood another version of the resonator, this one smaller and seemingly more advanced. The setup suggested it was meant to contain and control the sound waves, preventing them from reaching critical levels. It was here that we discovered the most crucial piece of evidence. a logbook detailing the final days of the facility. The entries, written by Dr. Everett himself, chronicled the escalating tension among the staff and the increasing instability of the resonator. He noted the inexplicable phenomena that had begun to plague the facility, attributing them to an unforeseen side effect of the resonator's frequencies. The final entry was a chilling confession. Dr. Everett admitted that he had underestimated the resonator's power and that the device had inadvertently created a feedback loop that amplified the sound waves to dangerous levels. The echoes that had haunted the facility were not just sounds but residual energy that continued to affect the environment long after the resonator was deactivated. With this revelation, everything fell into place. The mysterious sounds, the strange occurrences, and the staff's sudden evacuation were all linked to the resonator's unintended consequences. The facility had been abandoned to prevent further harm, leaving its secrets buried beneath layers of dust and silence. As we prepared to leave the facility for the last time, I felt a sense of closure. The echoes of the past, once so haunting, now served as a reminder of the boundaries of human understanding and the ethical responsibilities that come with scientific discovery. Dr. Carter and I dismantled the smaller resonator, ensuring that it could no longer be activated. We documented everything, intending to share our findings with the scientific community in a responsible and ethical manner. Our journey back through the forest was quiet, the sun filtering through the trees in golden streams. I felt a profound sense of relief, knowing that the mysteries of the facility had been unraveled and its dangers neutralized. In the weeks that followed, Dr. Carter and I presented our findings to a select group of researchers, emphasizing the need for caution and ethical considerations in any future studies involving sound manipulation. Our work was met with both intrigue and concern, sparking debates about the potential applications and risks of such technology. As for me, I continued my exploration of the unknown, driven by a newfound respect for the power of sound and the mysteries it holds. The echoes of the past had taught me that curiosity, while a powerful motivator, must always be tempered with caution and responsibility. The abandoned facility, once a place of secrets and danger, now stood silent and forgotten, its echoes a distant memory. But the lessons learned within its walls would resonate with me for a lifetime, a reminder of the delicate balance between discovery and caution in the pursuit of knowledge. It started as a bad joke between friends. My best buddy, Tom, stumbled across a dark web forum dedicated to occult rituals and supernatural phenomena. He told me about it one night over drinks, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of something forbidden. At first, I brushed it off as another one of his bizarre internet finds, but then he mentioned a ritual that piqued my interest, a way to summon a ghost for revenge. Revenge on who? I asked, half laughing, half curious. Anyone you want? Tom replied with a shrug. The post claims you can direct a spirit to avenge your wrongs. Sounds like nonsense, right? But it wasn't nonsense to me. Ever since my ex-girlfriend Lisa left me for someone else and took everything we shared, my life had spiraled into chaos. She didn't just break my heart, she wrecked my world. She convinced friends and family to side with her, leaving me isolated and lost. I felt the sting of betrayal every single day. I wanted to move on, but the hurt was like a shadow that followed me everywhere. I couldn't shake the thought of the ritual. It was a desperate, absurd idea, but desperation can lead you to consider things you'd usually dismiss. I spent hours browsing the dark web forum, reading every detail about the summoning ritual. The post was written by someone using the handle Ghost Seeker, who claimed they had successfully summoned a spirit for revenge. The process was detailed and involved items I could easily obtain. A chill ran down my spine as I read the ingredients. A black candle, a piece of chalk, and a personal item from the target. Lisa's favorite necklace, which I still had by accident. The final step required reciting an incantation at exactly 3 a.m. under the full moon. The instructions warned of unintended consequences if not performed precisely, but I was beyond caring about caution. The full moon was in 2 days. I spent the interim preparing, alternating between a sense of excitement and trepidation. Part of me hoped it wouldn't work, that it was just an elaborate prank by some internet troll. Yet another part of me, the part fueled by anger and hurt, hoped it was real. The night of the ritual, I set up everything in my small apartment. I drew a circle on the floor with the chalk and placed the black candle in the center, lighting it as I placed Lisa's necklace beside it. The room was dimly lit, the flickering candle casting eerie shadows on the walls. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of fear and anticipation coursing through me. I took a deep breath and began to recite the incantation. The words felt foreign on my tongue, each syllable carrying an unnatural weight. As I spoke, the air grew colder and a faint whispering sound filled the room. I paused, glancing around, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. It had to be my imagination, I thought. But then the candle flame flickered violently, nearly extinguishing itself before stabilizing again. With the ritual complete, I waited, feeling foolish yet expectant. For a moment nothing happened, and I almost laughed at myself for being so gullible. But then I heard it. A soft, mournful wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a sound that chilled me to the bone, unlike anything I had ever heard before. The temperature in the room plummeted, and I could see my breath fogging the air. Panic seized me as I realized the sound was real. I backed away from the circle, my mind racing with regret. What had I done? In the days that followed, I heard about Lisa. She was experiencing a series of inexplicable misfortunes. Her car broke down on a deserted road. She lost her job due to a mysterious error, and she even mentioned feeling watched and hearing whispers in her home. A shiver ran down my spine when I heard these stories. I hadn't believed the ritual would work, yet here was proof. But my sense of triumph was short-lived. One night as I lay in bed, I felt a presence in the room. The air was icy, and the same mournful wail echoed in my ears. I opened my eyes to see a shadowy figure at the foot of my bed, a ghostly apparition with hollow eyes and an aura of malevolence. The spirit seemed to lock eyes with me, and in that moment, I understood. The ghost had fulfilled its task, but now it sought another target, me. I had unleashed something beyond my control, and I realized that resolving its unfinished business was the only way to end this haunting. The ghost disappeared, but the fear lingered. I needed to find out who the spirit was and what it wanted. Only then could I hope to stop it before it exacted its revenge on me as well. In the days following the ritual, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak in the floorboards, every rustle of the wind seemed amplified, a reminder that I was no longer alone. The presence I had summoned was with me, and its intentions were anything but friendly. I started researching ghosts and hauntings, desperate to find a way to uncover the spirit's identity. The dark web was filled with stories of vengeful ghosts, but none provided concrete guidance on dealing with the aftermath of a successful summoning. My apartment felt like a prison, with the walls closing in, suffocating me with a sense of impending doom. The first breakthrough came when I revisited the forum where I found the ritual. Buried in the comments was a post from another user, Spirit Sage, who claimed to have successfully identified and resolved a spirit's unfinished business. Their advice was cryptic, but hinted at using personal items connected to the ghost's past to communicate directly with it. Armed with this knowledge, I embarked on a quest to learn more about the ghost I had unleashed. I reached out to Tom, hoping he could help me find a way to identify the spirit. He was skeptical at first, but the desperation in my voice convinced him to help. Together, we dug into the history of the area where I lived, searching for stories of tragedy and loss. We combed through old newspapers, archives, and local legends. It was a tedious process, but I knew that understanding the ghost's past was the key to resolving its unrest. One story stood out among the rest, a tale about a young woman named Eliza who had lived in the building where I now resided. According to the reports, she had died under mysterious circumstances nearly a century ago. Her death ruled a tragic accident. Rumors whispered of a betrayal, of a love gone wrong, and an unfulfilled promise. Eliza's story resonated with me, the details aligning eerily with the circumstances of my own ritual. Could she be the spirit I had called forth? It made sense that her unresolved anger could have been redirected towards Lisa, whose actions mirrored the betrayal Eliza might have experienced. With Tom's help, I managed to find a local historian who had written extensively about Eliza's life and death. We arranged a meeting, hoping he could provide more insight into her story. The historian, Mr. Carlson, was a kindly old man with a wealth of knowledge about the town's past. He shared Eliza's tragic tale, confirming much of what I had already discovered. Eliza was a spirited young woman, Mr. Carlson recounted. She was engaged to be married, but her fiancé broke off the engagement, leaving her heartbroken. Shortly afterward, she died in a mysterious accident. Some say she never left, her spirit lingering, waiting for closure. Hearing Eliza's story stirred something in me, a sense of empathy, a recognition of her pain. She wasn't just a vengeful ghost. She was a soul trapped in a cycle of hurt and betrayal. I needed to reach out to her, to offer her the closure she never received in life. Mr. Carlson mentioned that Eliza had a beloved locket she always wore, said to be buried with her in a nearby cemetery. This locket might be the personal item needed to communicate with her, to help her find peace. That night, armed with a flashlight and a growing sense of determination, Tom and I made our way to the cemetery. The air was crisp and silent, the moon casting a ghostly glow over the gravestones. We found Eliza's resting place easily. Her grave was marked by an ornate headstone, its inscription weathered by time. I felt a pang of guilt as we carefully unearthed the soil, uncovering the small box that held Eliza's locket. Holding it in my hand, I could feel a faint warmth, as if it still carried a piece of her essence. Back at my apartment, I placed the locket in the circle where I had performed the ritual, lighting the black candle once more. The air felt charged with anticipation, the shadows in the room dancing with the flickering flame. I spoke to Eliza, telling her story aloud, acknowledging her pain and the betrayal she had suffered. I promised to help her find peace, to ensure her story was not forgotten. The room grew colder, the familiar whispering sound filling the air. And then I saw her, a faint figure hovering just beyond the candlelight, her eyes filled with sorrow and longing. She seemed to nod, a silent agreement between us, before fading away into the shadows. As the candle flickered out, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The weight of her presence had lifted, replaced by a quiet understanding, but I knew my journey was far from over. I needed to fulfill my promise to Eliza, to uncover the truth behind her death and ensure her spirit found the closure it deserved. Only then could I hope to end the haunting for good. Eliza's presence faded from my apartment, but I still felt her lingering spirit urging me to uncover the truth about her death. With the locket as my guide, I was determined to honor the promise I made and help her find peace. The task seemed daunting, but I was resolute in my decision to do whatever it took to fulfill my promise. The locket felt like a key to Eliza's past, and I hoped it would lead me to the answers I needed. I returned to Mr. Carlson, seeking his insight into Eliza's life and the mystery surrounding her death. He greeted me warmly, intrigued by my resolve to help her. The town was abuzz with rumors after Eliza's death, Mr. Carlson explained, his eyes twinkling with the excitement of sharing local lore. Some believed her fiancé was involved in her accident, but nothing was ever proven. He left town shortly after her passing, which only fueled suspicions. The idea that Eliza's fiancé might have had a hand in her death was chilling, but it made sense. Betrayed by the one she loved, Eliza's spirit would naturally seek justice, even after all these years. I needed to find out more about him and their relationship, hoping to uncover the truth behind the tragic end of their love story. Mr. Carlson mentioned that the fiancé, a man named Henry, had been a promising businessman, with aspirations that took him away from the town. His sudden departure after Eliza's death had raised eyebrows, but he left no clues behind. If I wanted to find out more about him, I would have to dig deeper. Armed with this information, I spent hours combing through old records and archives, trying to trace Henry's whereabouts after he left town. My search led me to a nearby city where Henry had reportedly settled and started a new life. It was there that I hoped to find the missing pieces of Eliza's story. I arrived in the city, my mind racing with questions and possibilities. Henry's trail was cold, but I was determined to uncover the truth. I visited local libraries, historical societies, and even the city archives, scouring for any mention of Henry and his life after Eliza's death. After days of searching, I finally found a lead, a newspaper article about a prominent businessman named Henry Turner who had made a name for himself in the city. His photograph, though aged, matched the descriptions I had found of Eliza's fiancé. This was him. I was sure of it. I learned that Henry had become a successful entrepreneur, living a life of luxury far removed from the small town where he had left Eliza. But the article mentioned something curious: Henry's sudden decision to donate a significant sum of money to a charity dedicated to helping victims of domestic violence. It seemed like a strange move for a man with no public record of involvement in such causes. Intrigued, I reached out to the charity, hoping to learn more about Henry's involvement. The director, a kind woman named Sarah, agreed to meet with me, intrigued by my quest to uncover the truth. Henry was a generous donor, Sarah explained when we met, but he never wanted public recognition for his contributions. He always insisted that his donations remain anonymous, even after his passing. Her words painted a picture of a man burdened by guilt, seeking redemption through good deeds. Could it be that Henry had spent his life trying to atone for his role in Eliza's death? It was a theory I couldn't ignore, but I needed more proof. I asked Sarah if there were any personal notes or letters from Henry, hoping to find a clue to his motivations. She was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed to let me see some of the documents he had left behind. Among the papers, I found a letter addressed to Eliza. It was never sent, the paper yellowed with age, but the words were still legible. Henry's handwriting was neat, almost formal, and his words were filled with regret and longing. "My dearest Eliza," the letter began, "I hope this finds you in peace, though I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. The decisions I made haunt me, and I wish I could go back and change everything." The letter went on to express his sorrow for leaving her, hinting at pressures and expectations that had driven him away. He mentioned the night of her accident, alluding to a misunderstanding that had spiraled out of control. It was clear that Henry blamed himself for Eliza's death, though the specifics remained vague. Reading the letter filled me with a mix of emotions. I felt sorry for Henry, burdened by his mistakes, but more importantly, I understood Eliza's need for closure. Her spirit needed to hear these words, to know that her fiancé had not forgotten her and had spent his life trying to make amends. With the letter in hand, I returned to my apartment, preparing to communicate with Eliza once more. I hoped that sharing Henry's words would bring her the peace she deserved and end the haunting that had begun with my misguided ritual. As I lit the black candle again, I placed the locket and the letter in the circle, hoping Eliza would hear my words. I recited the letter aloud, feeling the air grow cold and the familiar whispers surround me. Eliza's apparition appeared once more, her form more solid than before. I saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes as she listened to Henry's words. Her expression softened, the anger that had fueled her spirit replaced by a gentle sadness. As the final words of the letter left my lips, Eliza's spirit seemed to smile, a bittersweet acknowledgement of the love and regret that had bound her to this world. Slowly, she faded from view, her presence lifting from the room like a gentle breeze. I knew then that Eliza had found the closure she needed, her spirit finally free from the chains of the past. As I extinguished the candle, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The haunting was over, but the lessons I had learned would stay with me forever. Helping Eliza find peace had taught me the power of forgiveness and the importance of letting go. It was a journey I never expected to take, but one that had changed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. As I sat in the quiet of my apartment, I realized that I too had found a sense of closure and a path forward, free from the shadows of the past. With Eliza's spirit finally at rest, I felt a tremendous weight lift off my shoulders. But the ordeal had changed me in profound ways. I had seen things I never thought possible, glimpsed the world beyond, and it left me with a newfound respect for the unknown. Yet, even as the haunting had ended, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had been forever altered. The locket, now an innocuous keepsake, lay on my desk, a silent reminder of the journey I had undertaken. Its presence was comforting, a symbol of the bond I had formed with Eliza, a connection that transcended time. Despite the calm, I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that lingered in the back of my mind. Eliza's story was resolved, but what about the repercussions of meddling with forces beyond my understanding? Had I truly closed the chapter, or was there more to unravel? As days turned into weeks, I found myself drawn back to the forum where this all began. The dark web was a vast, shadowy place filled with hidden knowledge and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Curiosity tugged at me, compelling me to explore further, to understand what else lay beyond the veil of the ordinary. Tom, ever the skeptic turned believer, was eager to join me. Our experiences had strengthened our friendship, forging a bond over our shared secret. Together, we delved deeper into the forum, seeking answers and discovering a community of individuals who had also dabbled in the supernatural. One post caught my attention, a thread discussing the ethics of summoning rituals and the consequences of disrupting the spiritual realm. The thread was filled with cautionary tales of unintended outcomes, spirits that lingered long after their business was concluded, and the necessity of understanding the balance between worlds. A particular comment by a user named Ethereal Guide stood out to me. They spoke of a ripple effect, an echo left behind when a spirit is summoned and then released. This echo, they claimed, could draw other entities, curious or malevolent, to the place where the ritual was conducted. It was a chilling thought, the idea that my actions could have opened a doorway to other spirits seeking resolution or revenge. Concerned, I shared my findings with Tom, who took the news with a mix of intrigue and apprehension. We decided to seek out Ethereal Guide, hoping to learn more about these potential repercussions and how to safeguard ourselves from any lingering effects of the ritual. We reached out through a secure message, explaining our situation and asking for guidance. To our surprise, Ethereal Guide responded promptly, offering to meet us virtually to discuss our experiences and provide advice. The meeting was set for a quiet evening, the soft glow of our computer screens illuminating our faces as we connected with Ethereal Guide. The person on the other side was enigmatic, speaking with a voice that carried a wealth of knowledge and experience in dealing with the supernatural. First, you must understand that every action in the spiritual realm has a consequence, Ethereal Guide explained, their tone both authoritative and compassionate. When you invite a spirit into this world, you open a pathway that others can follow. It's essential to close that pathway once the spirit's business is resolved. Their words resonated with me, reminding me of the responsibilities I had taken on when I performed the ritual. I asked how we could ensure the pathway was closed, wanting to make sure no harm would come to myself or others as a result of my actions. Ethereal Guide advised us to conduct a closing ceremony, a ritual designed to seal the doorway and protect the space from future disturbances. They provided detailed instructions, emphasizing the importance of intention and focus during the process. Feeling a renewed sense of purpose, Tom and I gathered the necessary items: a white candle to represent purity and protection, sage for cleansing, and a small mirror to reflect and close the spiritual pathway. The ritual was to be performed at sunset, when the veil between worlds was at its thinnest. On the chosen evening, we prepared my apartment for the ceremony. The atmosphere was calm, yet charged with anticipation, the air heavy with the scent of sage as we began the ritual. We lit the white candle, its gentle flame casting a warm glow around the room. Following ethereal guide's instructions, we used the mirror to symbolically reflect the open pathway, visualizing it closing and sealing behind Eliza's spirit. As we focused our intentions on protection and peace, a sense of tranquility enveloped us, the room filled with a soothing energy. The ceremony concluded, leaving us with a profound sense of relief. We had taken the necessary steps to ensure that the balance between worlds was restored, that no lingering echoes would remain to disrupt our lives. In the aftermath, I felt a renewed appreciation for the world I inhabited and the mysteries it held. The experience had taught me about the complexities of life and the connections that bind us all, seen and unseen. I was grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow, to understand the importance of respecting forces beyond our comprehension. With Eliza's story resolved and the spiritual doorway closed, I could finally move forward, carrying the lessons of my journey with me. The dark web, once a source of fascination and fear, had become a tool for understanding, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the infinite possibilities it contained. As I sat in the quiet of my apartment, I realized that while the journey had been unexpected, it had led me to a deeper understanding of myself and the world around me. And though the shadows still lingered at the edges of my awareness, I knew I had the strength and knowledge to face whatever lay ahead. With the ritual complete and the spiritual door closed, life slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy. The air in my apartment felt lighter. The oppressive weight of the unknown finally lifted. I was no longer haunted by shadows or whispers, but instead filled with a sense of peace and gratitude for the journey I had taken. Tom and I had grown closer through our shared adventure, and our friendship had become a source of strength and comfort. We often talked about the events that had unfolded, marveling at the mysteries we had encountered and the lessons we had learned along the way. Our conversations were filled with laughter and reflection, a testament to the bond we had forged in the face of the unknown. With Eliza's spirit at rest, I found myself inspired to delve deeper into the world of the supernatural, not out of fear, but out of a genuine curiosity and respect for the unseen. I began to explore the history of my town, uncovering stories of other spirits and legends, each one a window into the past and a testament to the enduring connections between worlds. In my spare time, I volunteered at the local historical society, sharing Eliza's story and helping others understand the importance of honoring and preserving the past. The community was receptive, intrigued by the tales I shared, and eager to learn more about the history that surrounded them. As I immersed myself in the stories of those who had come before, I realized that the supernatural was not something to be feared, but something to be understood and respected. It was a reminder of the complexity and beauty of life, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity and the connections that bind us all. The locket, once a key to the past, had become a cherished keepsake, a symbol of the journey I had undertaken and the friendships I had forged along the way. I kept it on my desk, a reminder of the lessons I had learned and the spirit I had helped to free. One day, as I sat reflecting on the events of the past few months, I received a message from Ethereal Guide. They wanted to check in, to see how things were going, and to offer their support and friendship. We had developed a camaraderie through our shared experiences, and their message was a welcome reminder of the connections we had made. In our conversation, Ethereal Guide encouraged me to continue exploring the supernatural, to use my experiences to help others navigate the complexities of the unknown. They suggested I start a blog, a platform to share my stories and insights with a wider audience. The idea resonated with me, and with Tom's support, I decided to embark on this new venture. I created a blog dedicated to the exploration of the supernatural, sharing tales of the past and offering guidance to those seeking to understand the mysteries of the world around them. As the blog grew in popularity, I found myself connecting with people from all walks of life, each with their own stories and experiences to share. The community that formed around the blog was vibrant and supportive, a testament to the enduring human desire to connect and understand. Through my writing, I discovered a newfound passion and purpose, a way to honor the journey I had taken and the lessons I had learned. The blog became a platform for exploration and understanding, a place where stories could be shared and spirits remembered. As I sat at my desk, the locket glinting in the soft light of the afternoon sun, I realized that the journey I had begun with a simple dark web post had led me to a deeper understanding of myself and the world around me. I had learned to embrace the unknown, to find beauty in the mysteries of life, and to cherish the connections that bind us all. The Spirit's Revenge had transformed into a journey of discovery and growth, a reminder that even in the face of the unknown, we can find strength, understanding, and peace. With a sense of gratitude and wonder, I looked forward to the adventures yet to come, knowing that I had the knowledge and courage to face whatever lay ahead. I've always been a bit of a tech enthusiast, the kind of person who dives deep into forums and obscure websites for the thrill of uncovering something hidden. It started as a hobby during my teenage years, but as I grew older, it became more of an obsession. Little did I know that this curiosity would lead me to a discovery that would change everything I believed about the world. One evening, as I sat in my dimly lit room, I stumbled across a post on a well-hidden corner of the internet. It was a forum thread with the cryptic title, "The Alien Language Decoder." The post claimed there was a program circulating on the dark web capable of translating alien languages. At first, I dismissed it as another elaborate hoax, but as I read through the comments, I noticed several users claiming to have experienced inexplicable phenomena after using the program. Curiosity got the better of me. I followed the rabbit hole of links and threads until I found a download link buried beneath layers of encryption and warnings. Every instinct screamed that it was a bad idea, but the allure of discovering something so groundbreaking was impossible to resist. The download was surprisingly quick. Once it finished, I hesitated, staring at the innocuous icon on my desktop, labeled ALD.exe. With a deep breath, I clicked it open, half expecting nothing to happen. Instead, the screen filled with an interface that looked like a blend of ancient hieroglyphics and modern code. There was a single prompt: input text to decode. I needed a test subject, something to see if this bizarre program had any merit. I opened an old digital copy of the Rosetta Stone text and copied a passage into the decoder. To my astonishment, the program hummed for a few seconds before spitting out a series of translated phrases. The translations were mostly garbled, but one phrase stood out: "Guardians of the Old World." My heart raced. I wasn't sure what to make of it. Part of me was thrilled, but another part was deeply unnerved. Could this be real? I needed more evidence, something that would prove the program's legitimacy beyond any doubt. Over the next few days, I pored over historical documents, inputting everything from ancient scripts to modern literature. The results were inconsistent, often producing nonsensical strings of words, but occasionally a coherent message would appear, hinting at some extraterrestrial involvement in human history. References to observers and watchers kept recurring. The most unsettling discovery came when I inputted a passage from a recent newspaper article about a satellite that had mysteriously malfunctioned. The decoded message was chilling. "They are listening." Despite the growing unease, I couldn't stop. I felt like a detective unraveling a mystery that had been hidden for centuries. Each translation, each clue, pushed me deeper into the conspiracy. I started documenting everything, keeping meticulous notes of each finding, hoping to piece together a cohesive story. However, my obsession was beginning to take a toll. I barely slept, and when I did, my dreams were filled with alien landscapes and strange whispering voices. It felt like I was being watched, but I dismissed it as paranoia fueled by lack of sleep. One night, as I was going through a transcription of a speech from the 1950s, the decoder froze. A message flashed on my screen. Error. Unauthorized access detected. My heart skipped a beat. Unauthorized? Was someone monitoring my activity? Before I could react, the program closed itself, leaving my room in eerie silence. That was when I heard it, a soft tapping at my window. I froze, my mind racing through rational explanations. Slowly I turned to look, expecting a branch or perhaps a bird. Instead, I saw a shadowy figure standing just beyond the glass, its features obscured by darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat, paralyzed with fear. The figure didn't move, didn't make any further attempt to gain my attention. It just stood there, watching. After what felt like an eternity, I blinked, and it was gone, leaving no trace it had ever been there. Shaken, I shut down my computer and retreated to my bed, pulling the covers tight around me. I lay awake, questioning everything. Had I really uncovered evidence of alien presence, or was my mind unraveling under the weight of my obsession? As I drifted into a fitful sleep, one thought echoed in my mind. I needed to understand the ultimate message behind these translations. But with every step I took into this unknown world, I feared what else I might uncover, and who or what might be watching me. I awoke the next morning with a lingering sense of dread. The memory of the shadowy figure outside my window played on repeat in my mind, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to discover. I needed to continue my research, but I decided to be more cautious. I started my day by thoroughly scanning my room for any signs of surveillance. I checked my computer for malware or tracking software, ensuring that no one could access my activities without my knowledge. Once I was satisfied that everything was secure, I returned to my notes and the now infamous program that had set me on this path. With a fresh cup of coffee and renewed determination, I began sifting through historical texts once more, focusing on documents related to significant events that seemed to have mysterious origins. I was determined to find a pattern, a clue that could tie everything together. The first document I analyzed was an account of the Tunguska event, a massive explosion in Siberia in 1908. Scientists have always attributed it to a meteorite, but skeptics questioned this explanation. When I ran a passage through the decoder, it returned a message that made my skin crawl. Observation successful. The experiment proceeds. I couldn't believe it. Was the Tunguska event an alien experiment rather than a natural occurrence? The thought was terrifying yet exhilarating. I felt like I was peering through a window into secrets humanity was never meant to uncover. Emboldened by this discovery, I continued my search. I moved on to ancient civilizations known for their mysterious advancements in technology and culture. The pyramids of Egypt, the stone statues of Easter Island, and the Nazca lines in Peru all provided new phrases and insights. Though many were vague and open to interpretation, the most compelling message came from a translation of an ancient Egyptian text. It referred to a council of stars that had granted the pharaohs their wisdom and knowledge. Could this council be an extraterrestrial influence on early human society? It seemed increasingly plausible. Despite the mounting evidence, I felt no closer to understanding the ultimate message or the true intentions of these beings. The messages were cryptic, often fragmented, and always left me with more questions than answers. Still, I pressed on, determined to decipher the truth. As I delved deeper, I began to notice a recurring symbol in many of the translations, a series of 3 concentric circles with a dot in the center. It appeared in various forms, often hidden within the text like a signature left behind by an unseen hand. I wasn't sure what it meant, but I was certain it was significant. The symbol haunted me. I started seeing it everywhere, from historical artifacts to modern logos, always lurking in the background, unnoticed by the public eye. It was as if the aliens were leaving a breadcrumb trail throughout history, visible only to those who knew what to look for. My curiosity soon turned into an obsession. I felt like I was being drawn into a web of secrets, each discovery pulling me deeper. My dreams became increasingly vivid and unsettling, filled with images of alien landscapes and figures communicating in that strange language I had only begun to understand. One afternoon, as I pored over yet another document, I received an unexpected email. The sender was anonymous, and the subject line simply read, "Stop." My heart skipped a beat as I opened the message, which contained only a single sentence: "You are not alone." Panic surged through me. Someone was aware of my activities. Whether they were human or something else, I couldn't be sure. I glanced around my room, half expecting to see someone watching me, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. I knew I should stop. Every instinct told me to abandon this quest and return to the safety of my normal life, but I couldn't. The truth was too tantalizing, the mystery too compelling. I was on the brink of a revelation that could change everything. That evening, I made a decision. I would reach out to others who might share my curiosity, people who could help me unravel this enigma. I posted a discreet message on the same forum where I'd found the decoder, asking for anyone with similar experiences to contact me. Days passed with no response, but just as I was starting to lose hope, I received a message from someone claiming to have seen the symbol too. They said they had information that could help me understand its significance and offered to meet at a nearby park. I hesitated, unsure if I could trust them. Was it a trap? But my desire for answers was too strong to resist. I agreed to the meeting, taking every precaution to ensure my safety. Little did I know, this encounter would set off a chain of events that would bring me face to face with the truth and the real danger that lay ahead. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. My mind was a whirlpool of excitement and fear, each emotion pulling me in different directions. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the verge of something monumental, something that could confirm the presence of extraterrestrials on Earth. Yet I also understood the risks involved, both from the unknowns of alien life and from others who might not want these secrets exposed. The next morning, I left my apartment with a sense of trepidation. The park was only a few blocks away, a quiet place with winding paths and towering trees that provided ample cover for a clandestine meeting. As I walked, I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see the shadowy figure from my window following me. But the streets were empty, and I arrived at the park without incident. I found a bench near the center of the park and sat down, pretending to read a book to avoid drawing attention. The minutes dragged by as I scanned the faces of passers-by, looking for any sign of my contact. I was about to give up and leave when a woman approached and sat down next to me, her face partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. "You must be the one asking questions," she said without preamble, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unsure of how much I should reveal. "I am. Are you the one who contacted me?" She nodded, her eyes darting around to ensure no one was listening. "I've been following the symbol too. It's appeared throughout history in places you wouldn't expect. It's like a signature, a mark left behind by those who know the truth." I leaned in, eager to hear more. "What do you know about it? Is it linked to aliens?" The woman hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "The symbol represents a connection, a communication link between us and them. It's been used by secret societies and government agencies for centuries, always hidden in plain sight." I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Why haven't people noticed it before?" "Because they don't want us to notice," she replied. "Those in power have always been aware of the alien presence. They've worked to keep it hidden, to maintain control. But the truth is out there waiting for those brave enough to seek it." As she spoke, the weight of her words settled over me. It was a lot to process, the idea that alien influence had been hidden and controlled for so long. But it made sense considering everything I discovered with the decoder. The woman continued, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. There's a message encoded within the symbol, a warning about the future. If you can decipher it, you might understand their intentions. I nodded, feeling the gravity of the task before me. How can I find this message? She handed me a small slip of paper with a sequence of numbers and letters. Start here. It's a key to a location where you can find more information. But be careful. There are those who will do anything to keep this secret. With that, she stood up and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me with more questions than answers. I pocketed the note and left the park, my mind racing with possibilities. Over the next few days, I immersed myself in the sequence, trying to decipher its meaning. I researched everything I could about cryptography and historical codes, hoping to unlock the secret within the numbers and letters. Finally, after hours of work, I identified a pattern. The sequence pointed to an archive of documents in a nearby library, a collection that was supposedly off-limits to the public. My heart raced as I realized I was close to uncovering another piece of the puzzle. The library was a stately building, its walls lined with rows of dusty tomes and ancient manuscripts. I approached the librarian, explaining that I was conducting research for a historical project. To my surprise, she nodded and led me to a small, dimly lit room filled with old files and documents. I spent hours combing through the archives, my fingers brushing over delicate pages filled with handwritten notes and sketches. As the afternoon wore on, I finally found what I was looking for, a file marked with the 3 concentric circles and the central dot. Inside, I discovered a collection of letters and reports detailing encounters with unidentified flying objects and unexplained phenomena. Some documents hinted at secret meetings between government officials and extraterrestrial beings, while others described strange artifacts found in remote locations worldwide. One letter, dated back to the early 1900s, caught my attention. It was a report of a peculiar incident in a rural town, where a mysterious object had landed, and its occupants had communicated with the locals using an unknown language. The language was eerily similar to the translations I'd been working on. Excited and a bit overwhelmed, I copied the most relevant documents and slipped them into my bag. As I left the library, I felt the weight of my discoveries pressing down on me. The deeper I delved, the clearer it became that the truth was both incredible and dangerous. I knew I was getting closer to understanding the alien message, but with each step, I felt the noose tightening around me. There were others who knew what I was doing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Yet, despite the risks, I couldn't stop. The truth was within my grasp, and I had to see it through to the end, no matter the cost. The thrill of discovery lingered as I left the library, but it was tempered by an increasing sense of unease. I could feel invisible eyes on me, shadows shifting at the edges of my awareness. Each step home felt like navigating a minefield of hidden dangers. But the documents I'd found compelled me forward. Once home, I spread the papers across my desk, eager to piece together the puzzle. The reports detailed more encounters and hinted at an intricate network of influence and cover-ups. I could see how the symbol was used as a marker for those who were aware, a secret handshake among those who had glimpsed the truth. One letter, dated 1947, stood out. It referenced an incident involving an unidentified flying object crashing in Roswell, New Mexico. The letter described how a team was dispatched to recover the wreckage and how those involved were sworn to secrecy. It mentioned artifacts recovered from the crash site and described them as technologies beyond our comprehension. The letter concluded with a warning. They are watching, waiting for us to reach the next stage. I leaned back in my chair, contemplating the implications. Was humanity part of some cosmic experiment, a pawn in a game played by beings far beyond our understanding? The thought was both humbling and terrifying. I decided to cross-reference the names mentioned in the documents with public records, hoping to find connections that would lend credibility to the stories. As I delved deeper into the research, a picture began to emerge. A web of individuals, some in high-ranking government positions, who seemed to know more than they let on. Suddenly my phone buzzed, startling me out of my focus. It was a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging. You are in over your head." A chill ran down my spine. I glanced around my apartment, half expecting someone to burst through the door. My heart raced as I considered the possibility that I was being monitored more closely than I had realized. Panic surged through me, but I pushed it down, knowing I couldn't back out now. I was too far in, and the truth was too compelling to ignore. I decided to move my research to a safe location, away from the prying eyes I felt encroaching on my space. The following day, I packed my notes and documents into a discreet backpack and set out for a nearby coffee shop, hoping the public setting would offer some security. I found a quiet corner and continued my work, my eyes darting to the door every time it opened. Hours passed as I pored over the documents, piecing together a timeline of alien involvement throughout history. It seemed these beings had been influencing human events for centuries, subtly guiding the course of our development. The more I learned, the more urgent it felt to decipher the final message hidden in their communications. But just as I was beginning to make progress, I noticed a man at a nearby table watching me. He was nondescript, dressed in a plain jacket and jeans, but his eyes were locked onto me with unsettling intensity. I tried to ignore him, focusing on my notes, but the feeling of being under surveillance was too strong to dismiss. Deciding it was time to leave, I gathered my things and headed for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. As I stepped outside, the man followed, maintaining a discreet distance. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I forced myself to walk calmly, hoping to lose him in the crowd. I ducked into an alley, then another, weaving through the streets in a desperate attempt to shake my pursuer. But no matter where I turned, I could sense his presence, relentless and unyielding. Finally, in a moment of desperation, I ducked into a small bookstore, hoping the narrow aisles and towering shelves would provide some cover. I hid behind a stack of books, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I tried to calm my racing heart. Minutes stretched into an eternity as I waited, straining to hear any sign of pursuit, but the only sound was the soft rustle of pages being turned by oblivious patrons. Eventually, I dared to peek out from my hiding spot, scanning the store for any sign of the man. He was nowhere to be seen, and relief flooded through me. I slipped out of the store and made my way home, constantly looking over my shoulder, expecting him to reappear at any moment. Once home, I knew I had to be even more careful. The chase had proven that I was onto something significant, something worth silencing. Yet, the danger only reinforced my determination to uncover the truth. I had come too far to turn back now, and the final message, whatever it might reveal, was within my grasp. After narrowly escaping my pursuer, I spent the next few days on high alert. I changed my routines, kept my phone off, and used only cash to avoid leaving a digital trail. Despite the paranoia that clung to me like a shadow, I remained focused on my goal, deciphering the ultimate message left by these enigmatic beings. My research continued in secret, confined to quiet corners of libraries and secluded parks, where prying eyes were less likely to find me. The documents I had collected formed a tapestry of history, revealing the extent of alien influence across the ages, but I was still missing the key to unlock their final message. Late one night, as I sat in a dimly lit cafe, poring over my notes, inspiration struck. The symbol, the 3 concentric circles with the dot, had always felt like a cipher, a code waiting to be cracked. I wondered if it might contain the key to understanding everything. I sketched the symbol on a napkin, studying it closely. The circles represented levels of understanding, layers of reality that overlapped, but did not fully intersect. The dot, I realized, was the point of connection, the nexus where human and alien comprehension converged. With newfound clarity, I returned to the documents, focusing on the instances where the symbol appeared. I noticed subtle references to astronomical events, celestial alignments that seemed to coincide with pivotal moments in human history. The more I connected the dots, the clearer the message became. The aliens weren't here to conquer or destroy. They were observers, chronicling our evolution, guiding us toward a future where we might join them among the stars. Their presence was a test of sorts, a way to determine if humanity was ready to embrace its place in a larger cosmic community. The final message, hidden in the layers of history and coded within the symbol, was a simple yet profound invitation. Seek the stars. Find your path. The weight of the revelation settled over me like a warm blanket. It was both exhilarating and humbling to realize that we were not alone, that the universe was teeming with life, waiting for us to reach out and join the chorus. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything I had learned. The chase, the fear, the sleepless nights. All of it seemed worth it now that I understood the truth. The aliens had been guiding us, not manipulating us, hoping that one day we would be ready to take our place among them. With this new understanding, I decided to share my findings with the world, but I knew it had to be done carefully. The truth was too important to be dismissed as mere conspiracy, too profound to be buried beneath skepticism and fear. I compiled my notes into a comprehensive report, detailing the connections and revelations I had uncovered. I included the historical documents, the translated messages, and the significance of the symbol, presenting them as evidence of a greater cosmic plan. I sent the report to trusted journalists, scientists, and researchers, hoping they would see the value in my work and carry the torch forward. It was a risk, but it was one I had to take. Humanity needed to know the truth, to understand its potential and its place in the universe. As I hit send on the emails, a sense of peace washed over me. I had done my part, taken the first step in bridging the gap between our world and the stars. The rest was up to others, to those who would pick up where I left off and continue the search for understanding. In the end, I realized that the alien presence was not something to fear, but something to aspire to. They were not invaders or enemies, but fellow travelers on the cosmic journey, inviting us to join them on the path to the stars. And so, with the weight of the truth finally lifted from my shoulders, I looked up at the night sky, the stars twinkling like beacons of hope. The universe was vast and mysterious, but now it felt a little more like home.